Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jordan and thank you so much for clicking on one of my bookish videos. Today I am so excited because I am going to be filming reading fantasy books for the week. I am in such a fantasy mood right now. It is the end of August. We are getting into the fall season and this is my favorite time of year to pick up fantasy books, and I have some very exciting books on my TBR. So if you are interested in seeing me read some new releases and very fun fantasy books in this reading vlog, then keep on watching. Hello, happy Monday. I am about to start this reading vlog off and I am so excited because the book that I am planning to read first is one that I have had on my Kindle for a while and I've been waiting to read it until it got closer to release, and also waiting until I got more into like a fall fantasy mood, and that is my arc of Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. I love Rebecca Ross's writing so much. Divine Rivals, that little duology, is honestly one of my favorite fantasy duologies, and this is set in the same world as Divine Rivals, but it's following the like love story of one of the goddesses, and I believe immortal, and so it's focusing more on the world of the gods and goddesses than seeing like the war and the world through the point of view of mortals, which was Divine Rivals. And I am so excited because one thing about me is I love anything that has to do with gods and goddesses and mythology, specifically in fantasy worlds. I have had a few friends who have read early copies already that have raved about this book. I literally have not started reading yet. I'm about to start reading now. I'm super excited. I don't really know what else is going to be included in this vlog. I have a few ideas. So let's start reading. Good morning. The sun just came out, so that's great. It is directly in my eyes. I wanted to do a quick check-in because I have made some good progress in Wild Reverence. I've been reading Wild Reverence and then I decided to pick up the Raven Scholar, which I've been hearing really great things about and I'm obsessed with so far. And I have a few other fantasy books that I want to read for the rest of this week. So I'm thinking that's what the video is going to be because I'm just in the fantasy mood right now, honestly. And reading these two books combined has made me just want to keep picking up fantasy books. So anyway, Wild Reverence, the first 20 to 25%, I'm not even going to lie, was really slow for me. That sucks because I was really looking forward to this book. I love the Divine Rivals duology, and it's not that this book is bad. It's certainly not. I'm loving the writing. I'm loving the gods and goddesses like aspect, and the like structure of like the gods and goddesses and their power I think is so cool. I think that the beginning of this book just didn't feel like a ton was happening other than Matilda, our female main character who's the goddess, meeting Vincent, who is the mortal that she falls in love with, and Matilda's kind of background, which I did enjoy. But I will say I am now at the 50% mark, and I think around the 30% mark things started to really pick up because that is when Matilda and Vincent like meet again and like actually meet, because before they basically were like only seeing each other in Vincent's dreams. They end up like meeting and interacting later in life once Matilda has gone through like so many stages of her life as a young goddess, and I'm now at the point where I am enjoying this book a lot more. I will say I absolutely love the writing. I think that the way that Rebecca Ross writes in like such a lyrical and just really beautiful way really lends itself well to like the world of gods and goddesses, because I feel like the way that she's describing Matilda and her powers and like the loneliness that Matilda feels and like the sense for belonging is really beautiful with her writing style. So I'm enjoying it. I'm excited to keep reading. I know that for a lot of people this is like one of their favorite books of the year. I'm not fully feeling that. Like right now I'm definitely sitting at like a 4 stars, but I would be delighted if my opinion is changed and I end up like being obsessed with this book in the second half. I'm not fully buying into Matilda and Vincent's relationship yet, but I do think that's because we haven't really gotten the full scope. Right now they're kind of in a fake relationship, and so like you can see their connection, but you can't see, I don't think, like the full like love and like yearning for each other. So I'm very interested to see if that changes in the second half of this book, and I will keep you updated. Okay, so now let's talk about the book that I'm currently loving, and that is The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. Okay, first of all, I love this cover so much, and she is a big beefy book. So I saw one of my YouTube besties, Kat reads a lot, reading this book and absolutely loving it. She said that this was her favorite book of 2025 so far. And then my other friend on Instagram, Kayla, was recently reading it and raving about it. And so I knew that I need to pick it up, and I am loving this book so far. I am currently 175 pages in, but it's like a 650 page book. From the beginning, I was absolutely loving this and eating it up. So it's set in a world where there's like these 8 gods, and they're like different types of animals. Each of the 8 has like their representative, and you get chapters at the very beginning finding out about the emperor and this family of like traitors. And you have the son Rocco, who basically betrays his twin sister and like sacrifices her and sends her to exile, and then he takes like a complete 180 with like his personality and like power that he craves. So far for the rest of the book, we've been following Nima. Nima is the emperor's high scholar, so she's like one of the most brilliant people in the empire. Towards like the 150 page mark of this book, we find out that one of the 8 has been murdered, and Nima is basically sent on this mission to figure out who killed one of the 8, which is also like her ex like enemy, like frenemy, which is kind of fun. And this is all taking place in the context of the 8 fighting to win over the spot to take over for the emperor, because his reign is coming to the end. And so in the middle of this competition, one of the 8 is murdered, and that's who Nima is sent to figure out what happened to her. So far, I'm just loving the actual plot of this book. I feel like it has like competition. It has a really unique magical fantasy world with like the 8 and the empire. I'm really liking Nima's character, and just so far, like every chapter I've been eating up. I've been looking forward to reading more. I feel like this is exactly like the epic fantasy I needed, which is perfect for the fall. I don't really think that this is very romantic-y yet. I'm not really getting hints of that, and I'm totally fine with that. I'm sure at some point there will be like a romance subplot. Honestly, I'm just having a lot of fun. I can see so far why so many people love this book, and I am having a really, really good feeling about how I'm gonna feel when I finish it. So I will check back in when I make further progress. Hello, I am here a few days later to provide you with my updates and final thoughts on the Raven Scholar and Wild Reverence. I finished them both yesterday. It did take me a bit to get through the Raven Scholar, which is fair considering how big it was, and same for Wild Reverence, but I ended up really enjoying them both. So first, I'm going to talk about Wild Reverence. I started this book. I was feeling a little bit concerned because the first, I would say like 25-30% dragged for me a bit. I really enjoyed Matilda's character and learning about the gods and like all of the myths and stories woven around her birth and her existence. I just wasn't really feeling like any connection with Matilda and Vincent, which is the main love story, and this is definitely a romantasy, so you would expect to really feel a connection between them. I would say around the 30% mark, I started feeling it more, but not only that, I feel like the story really picked up with the two of them actually meeting and interacting and having like a fake relationship and all of the drama going on. Just seeing Matilda's character grow throughout the story, her being a young goddess and then like slowly kind of coming into herself and picking up all these different powers that nobody knew she had. Everyone really underestimated her. So as the story went along, it was picking up. I was enjoying it more. And then honestly, the last 25% was so good. It took a complete turn where I feel like I just was finally able to really see the love and intimacy between Matilda and Vincent, considering the trials and tribulations that their relationship went through at the end and the loss and grief that they both went through for each other. I was crying. I did not expect to get emotional or as emotional as I did, considering how I felt towards the beginning of the book, but the last 25% was so beautifully written. There were so many quotes that I was underlining in this arc. I just cannot wait to see in the final physical copy because I truly do think it's some of Rebecca Ross's best writing yet. And I just absolutely loved it. Like, I loved seeing the journey that Matilda went on. She's such a strong character, but also so vulnerable and loving and caring for other people despite how the world has teared her down. I loved her and Bade's like father-daughter relationship. Just seeing like the way that Vincent and Matilda came together at the end after all they've been through was so good. So honestly, I've gone back and forth for a few days, but I do think I'm gonna give this a 4.5. It may end up being a 4-star by the time I write my review and the book comes out, but I really enjoyed this. I think if you like Rebecca Ross's writing and her books, you're really gonna enjoy this one. Another good book from her. And then The Raven Scholar was another fantastic one for me. I have heard a few friends rave about this one and say that it's their favorite book of the year, and honestly, I completely understood that while reading this book, and after reading it, I just feel like it's one of the most unique fantasy books that I've read in quite some time, mainly because of the like mythology and the old gods that were such a key part of the story and the plot, but also the underlying mystery throughout this book. I feel like a lot of fantasy books don't really have like a mystery element to them, and this book is heavily focused on uncovering not only what happened to one of the contenders who was murdered right before like the trial started, and Nima, the main character, is responsible for uncovering that mystery for the emperor, but there's also a lot of twists and turns in kind of figuring out who the emperor actually is. It's clear from the beginning that at least Nima realizes that he is not actually who he says he is. He's another person masking as the emperor to have his role and his power. The end of this book, the plot twist of who the emperor actually is was so crazy. I did not guess who it was going to be, and just the way the end of the book unfolded with so much portrayal, all these different characters turning on each other, but also what they thought was going to happen after the trials and who they thought the clear winner for emperor was going to be, ended up completely backfiring. If you are looking for an epic fantasy world to immerse yourself in with such a unique fantasy world and magic system, but especially incorporating mythology, it very much reminded me almost of like hints of Egyptian mythology, with the different animals being the gods and their different myths being incorporated throughout the book with the characters that represent them. I really enjoyed that part. I also loved Nima and Kane's relationship. That was like the hint of the romance in this book. They just had such a heartbreaking relationship and history, and seeing seeing them come back together and try to fight for each other and protect each other was really beautiful. I just really, really need the second book. This is definitely going to be a top fantasy book of the year for me, and I need more people to read it because I have so many thoughts that I want to share. Hello. We have not done a check-in in a bit, but I wanted to update because I did start listening to the Jasad Heir by Sarah Hashim. I'm currently, I think, about 40% through, and I'm absolutely loving it. Basically, it is set in a Egyptian inspired fantasy world. It is following this girl Sylvia, and Sylvia is the heir of Jasad, and Jasad was this kingdom of magic. And 10 years ago, Sylvia watched as the kingdom of Jasad was burned, her family was killed, and magic was outlawed in the overarching kingdom. And in this book, she's been hiding and concealing her magic for the past 10 years, and she comes across Aaron, who is the heir of Nizal, one day as he is following a group of Jasad rebels to her village, and he discovers her and realizes that she has magic. And so Sylvia is basically forced into this deal with Aaron that if she helps him track down the Jasad rebels, he will let her keep her life even though she has magic, because magic is persecuted in the kingdom. And so Sylvia has to work with him without showing and revealing that she actually is the Jasad heir. It's really, really good. I'm loving the audiobook so far. I just got to the part where there's now a male narrator for Aaron, and he's getting his own point of view, which I'm really enjoying. I can tell that there's definitely going to be a little romance between the two of them, but it's definitely slow burn because we haven't seen anything yet. And I just really love Sylvia's character. You can tell that she's been through a lot. She's watched basically everyone she's loved die and be tortured and persecuted for their magic and where they come from. And I am very excited to see where the rest of the book goes. So that is what I'm going to be finishing listening to this week. Hello, I am here to check in and provide some updates for the Jasad Heir. I am currently about 75% in, I think, and I'm really enjoying it. I feel like at the 50% mark, it really picked up in terms of the plot, because Sylvia is starting to get in the middle of a lot of powerful people discovering that she may be Jasadi and she may have magic. Currently want to just binge the rest of this book reading it, because I feel like the audiobook has been moving a little bit slow. I normally, for a longer fantasy audiobook, go back and forth between listening to the audiobook and physically reading, but I've only been listening to the audiobook for the first 75%, but I feel like I'm gonna read the final 25% because I'll get through it faster, and I can already tell the ending is fast paced and there's a lot of setup that is leading to a lot of things that are gonna occur in this competition and people finding out Sylvia's true identity. I am just very curious. I kind of love all the flashbacks that are happening with Sylvia and everything that she herself is discovering about the Jasad Empire and whether or not they were corrupt and whether or not they deserved what they went through. I'm enjoying it. I think there are a lot of timely themes and parallels to a lot of current events. I'm hoping I can fly through the last 25%, so I will see you then. happy Sunday. I am here to wrap this video up and provide my final thoughts about the Jasad Heir because I finished it the other night immediately after I said that I was going to just sit down, binge the last 25% of this book. I flew through it once I started physically reading the book just because I take longer to listen to audiobooks than I do when I'm physically reading. I really ended up enjoying it, although the romanticy in this book was very slow burn. It did really pick up at the end, and I really enjoyed the whole kind of enemies to lovers vibe between Aaron and Sylvia, and the cliffhanger at the end of this book makes me want to reach for the next book in this duology so badly because I really am rooting for them. I feel like Sylvia and Aaron both have a lot of past trauma and just a huge burden on their shoulders for being the heir of two different kingdoms. You could tell that they really developed feelings for each other despite knowing that it probably was not for the best and would not work out. As for the actual plot and the fantasy of the book, I really liked that this was Egyptian mythology inspired. I feel like it made the fantasy world in this book really unique. I loved learning about Sylvia's past and the Jasad Empire and kingdom and kinda the different hidden secrets even from her that we learned about throughout this book. I feel like especially the flashbacks, the little memories that Sylvia was uncovering that she seemed to have suppressed was very interesting because we got to see a very different side of Jasad experiencing the horror and the sadness as she learned that maybe everything in her home and her kingdom was not what it seemed. And I really enjoyed it. I think I would give it probably a 4.5 stars. So that is it for this little reading vlog, reading fantasy books with me. I read 3 really amazing and very different fantasy books, and I honestly enjoyed all of them. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing me read these 3 fantasy books and sharing all of my thoughts. I loved filming this. If you can't tell, I am definitely in a fantasy mood and a fall mood. For some reason, I am ready for the fall. I am ready to just completely shift into my favorite season of the year and my favorite time to read books. I can't wait to keep sharing all of the fantasy reading content. So if you enjoyed watching this, I would love it if you subscribe for more bookish videos from me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.